In the world of sports, your performance is everything. So what happens when our minds end up impacting our performance? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mindful Sports Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mindful Sports. Today, we've reached the third and final mindset for competitive success, perfectionism. Now, before we go into perfectionism, I just wanted to do a short recap of the other two mindsets. First, we went over mastery, and this is where we simply wanted to have the exceptional skills or knowledge in an area. Not necessarily wanting the best, not wanting to be perfect, but we wanted to be in an elite level. We also, in that episode, introduced the task versus ego drives behind the mindsets. Our task is more focused on the process, and our ego is more focused on comparing ourselves to other people around us. And then last week, we went into bestism. This took that mastery mindset a little step further with that drive to be the best. More than a master, yet accepting our inability to be perfect. Both of these brought us to today's mindset of perfectionism. Being perfect means that you cannot have any flaws or defects. For an athlete, this means that you're not only the best at your position or on the field or what you do, but you're also not making mistakes. Whether it's on the shots, whether it's on your defensive play, passing or receiving a pass, everything. Every game without a mistake. Now, would love to get an answer on this. Have you ever seen one of those? I didn't think so, because I haven't either. Even baseball that has a perfect game, they're not really perfect. It simply means that nobody even reaches first base. Doesn't mean that there's no bad pitches or that a batter does not make contact with the ball. It simply means that nobody reached first base. So even what we call a perfect game in a sport really isn't actually perfect. Because see, perfection is something that is unattainable. There's no way that we can ever obtain perfection. But that pursuit of perfection from a perfectionism mindset drives a person into many, many negative spirals. It's also the most ego-driven of the mindsets, where you are solely focused on the comparison of yourself to other people. To a person with a perfectionist mindset, if anything is not done right, it eats away at their soul. They can't handle something so minor being wrong. Even after that event is long past, they'll often continue to dwell and stay pinpointed on that event if they saw that they were making mistakes and that they weren't perfect. They're also very, very likely to tell you every mistake that they've made, because that's something that stays in their mind forever. Someone with a perfectionist mindset, because of this, is generally very high strung and constantly on edge. It's because they're afraid to make any mistakes. Because if they make a mistake, then obviously they won't be perfect. And for someone with that perfectionist mindset, they have to be perfect. Not want to be perfect, but they need to. They have to be perfect and without mistakes. So what happens when an athlete has a perfectionist mindset? Well, one thing is that they're likely going to force themselves into being controlling of every aspect of a situation. And that includes others, whether it be teammates, coaches, referees. Since they expect perfection, they often become the control freak of the team. It doesn't mean that every controlling person has a perfectionist mindset, but everyone with a perfectionist mindset will be controlling and overbearing. It simply is the nature of that mindset and that nature of that need to be perfect. It's often not held just to themselves. That standard is not just for themselves, because so often, especially in sports, somebody else's performance impacts our performance as well. You think of any team sport where you have to work together. If somebody doesn't make the right play, that might put you in a bad position. Somebody makes a bad pass, you may not be able to catch it. Or you may make a great pass and somebody else isn't where they're supposed to be or should be, or they messed up. And now it's on you. That it's going to drive a perfectionist crazy. And so they often will stick to very strict schedules. They'll have a much higher intensity of training, and they will hyper focus on details. They're going to jump on everything that is wrong. And all of this correction is going to come whether you want it or not. For someone with a perfectionist mindset, they're not thinking about what the other person may want or what the other person may be thinking or going through. They have to have it perfect, and therefore they're going to make it perfect no matter what. Another thing that often happens is that they're very emotional in an over-the-top way. Because those mistakes eat so deeply at them. Even a small, minor mistake is taken as though the world is ending. As we said, they're high strung. So every little thing counts. So people with a perfectionist mindset tend to often struggle with higher rates of stress-related health issues, burnout, and anxiety. And sometimes these emotions are not necessarily seen in an outward expression. They can beat themselves up in their own minds as well. We do typically see the external reaction from someone with a perfectionist mindset, but that's not always the case because there are many other factors into that. They could appear calm on the outside, but in their minds, it's a relentless storm of derogatory remarks that they are hurling at themselves. And it may be that they've learned this calm exterior because of past experiences of emotional outbursts and seeing the way that other people have reacted to them or been chastised for them. And so, as with anyone, they learn to internalize their struggles. They learn to keep what's going on bottled up. And so they seem as though they're okay. Maybe we think that they're getting better because they're not as angry as they used to be. But that's not really the case because all it's done is turned inside. in their heads. And after this short break, we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the dangers of this mindset, because there are a lot of them. And it is something that anyone, whether you have this mindset, know someone who has this mindset, or are around other people that may have this mindset, it's important to know these things so that we can help. Welcome back, everyone. So we kind of went over initially in the last segment about the perfectionist mindset. And for someone with a perfectionist mind, there is never a good enough. Whereas someone with a mastery or even a best as a mindset can find moments where things are good enough, even though they could be better. They're not perfect. They could have done something better. Those moments are good enough for someone with a mastery or best as a mindset. However, that perfectionist mind would never be able to let those things go. And it's largely the reason that they experience those stress-related health issues and burnout and anxiety more than others. It's because they're constantly trying to stretch themselves into everything all of the time. They never have an off button. This is something that we talk about with people with ADHD like myself, where we're just on the go all the time. There's always something. It's not necessarily a lack of attention. It's a lack of attention to a specific thing because our attention is spread out in so many ways. And that's very similar to this perfectionist mindset. They're going at 200% in everything that they do every day. There is no stop for them. They don't sit here and think, oh, well, okay, I'll take a break today. No, because the minute they take a break, something's not perfect. And that's the reason that this mindset can be so dangerous, especially for an athlete. We as everyday humans, we know for the most part, there is no perfection. We label things as perfect. And yet we turn around and say that you can always do better. Which is it? Is there things that are perfect, or is there you can always do better? It's the fact that we can always do better. But we get something that is so great that we label it as perfection. And for an athlete to have that mindset of things needing to be perfect, it simply doesn't exist. There's no way that it can exist. You can't account for all the variables. You can't control somebody else's skill level. You can't control the weather. You're not in the mind of the officials or the coach. And therefore, someone with that perfectionism mindset is pretty much doomed to a lifetime of stress and struggle unless they are able to get help and find ways to let certain things go and find a way to redirect their mindset, which is not an easy thing to do for a perfectionist and someone with that mindset. Now, the fact that perfection isn't attainable doesn't mean that we should not strive to eliminate our mistakes. This should always be a goal, that we're trying to get better, that we're trying to make fewer and fewer mistakes. But we also need to understand that we're not going to fix everything. And balancing these two conflicting trains of thought is difficult for everyone. We have to eliminate mistakes, but we also have to accept mistakes. That those two thoughts are in direct conflict to each other. And for a perfection mindset, trying to balance those two is impossible. And it's because of this and all of these challenges that a perfectionism mindset brings, that someone who has this mindset needs an extremely strong, patient, and persistent support system. They need someone, or often a group of people, who are not only able to keep their drive for perfection in check, but to also keep tabs on their mental well-being. Those with this mindset can easily slip into depression or develop anger issues, have an inability to let go of an issue, or even fail to look after their own health because their focus is on something else, because they're trying to be perfect in everything that they do. They can often neglect themselves trying to achieve that goal. And for a perfectionism mindset, if there is not that constant, persistent support system trying to rein in and let things go and redirect focus and redirect efforts, then it is very easy for that mindset to slip away uncontrolled. And your support system has to be extremely patient, because since this is an almost fully ego-driven mindset, the comparisons between someone with this perfectionism mindset and everyone else are going to be happening on a constant, every day, every minute, every hour basis. And so you have to be patient with these people, especially if they have not had anyone before you. They don't know these things. They don't know how to handle all of everything that they're trying to handle, or to back off, or to redirect. And because they've spent so much time with this mindset, trying to redirect them, trying to support them is going to be difficult. With that being said, having a perfectionism mindset is not all bad. And many of the things that are negatives can actually also create so many positives for this mindset as well. It's not completely hopeless. There's not nothing that you can do. And so after this short break, I want to go a little bit into some of those positives of this mindset, how we can use this mindset to create a more productive environment. Welcome back, everyone. So, in our last segment, we talked about some of the negative downsides of having this perfectionism mindset. And now I want to go into some of those positives, because many of these same qualities that create negatives also create positives. Take the fact that a perfectionism mindset will not drop something until it's completed. For an athlete, this means that they're often going to be the hardest working and most studious players that a coach will have. They'll always have questions. They'll try a technique until they get it right consistently. Even your most passionate and devoted player will likely not have the same drive as someone with a perfectionism mindset, because these people will push until it is right, and they will push to make sure that it is right every single time, and they won't be satisfied otherwise. That means that they're probably also going to be the drive behind the rest of the team. Person with a perfectionism mindset who has developed strong leadership skills as well can be the reason that a team is able to take their play to the next level, either during a game or throughout practices, or they could even make their team have that one last strong push at the end of a game, whether it's that push to score or that push to protect and defend. Having someone with perfectionist tendencies on your team can help it run like a well-oiled machine, because they expect so much. It means that your team's going to have more complete games with less errors. And for any sports team, that is a critical component to success. Limiting your mistakes plays a large role in being able to win and be successful in sports. So that perfectionism mindset fits perfectly into these roles. It fits absolutely perfect. And for an athlete, having a perfectionism mindset also allows more time for learning new techniques and preparing for games. But it can also lead to overuse injuries or burnout of passion for the sport, and increased stress over performance issues. So having a purely perfectionism mindset can offer many benefits, but it also has to be with that strong support system that we talked about. Perfectionist is also going to be someone who can be a little bit more creative about how they do things. Sometimes, many times, perfectionist is also going to stick to the plan. Those injuries that they get whenever there's a plan, they're going to take every single step and make sure that they come back. But not only that they come back, but that they come back better. Or maybe that they come back earlier because they've done so much correct. Those stress over performance issues, that can be managed. But it also gives them what they need to be competitive. That drive, that mentality of being perfect can help make a team, if utilized in the correct way, so much stronger than what they would be otherwise. Mastery and bestism, they both will settle for good enough. I'm the best, and that's good enough. I'm elite, and that's good enough. Whereas a perfectionism mind will say, I may be elite, but I need to be better. I may have become the best, but I need to stay on top. And I need to be better to make sure that nobody else can beat me. I have to be perfect. And that's something that can be so rewarding in sports and for athletes. So having those perfectionism mindsets are not necessarily bad. The key difference, though, is that we more want to have the tendencies and components of a perfectionist mind than actually have a fully perfectionism mindset. And if you're an athlete who has more than just tendencies of perfectionism, strongly consider your support system and who is in it. Are these people that can get through your stubbornness and incredible drive? Are they people that are willing to speak truth into you and help you avoid those negative aspects of your mindset? They have to be able to praise the positives while reining you in. Because if all they do is try to rein you in, that's going to make it harder. If you're in that support system and you're not praising the positives of someone with a perfectionism mindset, then all you're doing is reinforcing that they're not good enough, that they're not perfect, and adding more stress than what they're already going through. It takes a special person to deal with a perfectionist mindset. It takes an even more special athlete to have that healthy perfectionism mindset in a world that often harps onto their stress points. They harp onto performance. They harp onto fixing mistakes. They harp onto having to have all of these components down to have success. And with that comes a lot of challenges for athletes. So if you are an athlete, please make sure that you create a strong support system, especially if you have that perfectionism mindset, because your mind can do great things. But with those great positives also comes a slew of potential pitfalls. Gain more success and minimize the risks. And with that, we're going to wrap up this series on our mindsets of competitive success. We covered our mastery and our bestism. And today we finished up with the perfectionism mindset. And each of these mindsets can have benefits for athletes, but they each also present their own challenges that we have to be aware of. The biggest differences between these three mindsets are their goals and the relationship between how much they are driven by task and the process and learning, and how much they're driven by ego and comparing to others. So which mindset do you see yourself having? Are you prepared with a plan for reinforcing the positive aspects of your mindset and diminishing the negative ones? Whether it's a mastery mindset, bestism mindset, or perfectionism mindset, You have to be able to grow the positives and minimize the negatives and the risks. If there's more that you want to know, or if you need some tips for a plan, feel free to reach out via any of the sources that we have, whether it be through our Facebook or Twitter, our Instagram. You can check out the blog for Mindful Sports on WordPress. But you're not alone in these mindsets. There are great things that you can do. And I want to thank you guys for being here on this journey for these 3 competitive mindsets. And before I go today, there's one little bit of housekeeping. I know that these are typically published on Sundays, and I am going to be gone at the end of this week. And when I come back, I'm actually going to shift from Sundays to Thursdays. So there will not be a podcast episode next Sunday. It will instead come out that first Thursday of June. And I look forward to seeing all you guys. I know that a lot of listeners here, that's when they're looking at the new episodes. And so I want to make it easier so that you don't have to try and search through your library to find the new episode. We want to put it more closely to a day where you're going to look at it so it can be right there for you and easier to access. And with that, I look forward to seeing you guys that very first Thursday in June. Have a great day, and I will see you again next time.
Please be sure to hit that like button, share this with your friends and family, and leave us a comment down below. Thank you everybody for watching. To stay up to date, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Have a great day.